The annual company party at Sarah's marketing firm was always the kind of event that demanded attention. Glamorous, bustling, and loud, it drew a crowd of ambitious professionals eager to network over cocktails and hors d'oeuvres. Sarah had been part of the company for 2 years, and she thrived under the constant pressure her role demanded. Her boss, Richard Caldwell, was the type of man who commanded respect the moment he entered a room. Tall, sharply dressed, with a handshake that felt more like a subtle assertion of dominance. Sarah had warned me about his intensity, but I brushed it off. I'm not flashy. I run a small carpentry shop and usually prefer to stay out of the spotlight. That's exactly how I liked it at events like these, quietly sipping a beer, letting Sarah move through the crowd with ease. But Richard had other ideas that evening. The venue was a modern rooftop bar with a panoramic view of the city lights sprawled beneath us. Sarah looked stunning in a deep navy dress, effortlessly working the room and charming colleagues with her confidence. I stuck to the edges, making small talk with a few of her co-workers about mundane topics. Whether local sports, nothing substantial. Then I felt his eyes on me. Richard had spotted me from across the room. At first I thought maybe he was just glancing, but no. He walked straight toward me, glass in hand, with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "You must be Sarah's husband," he said, his tone smooth but layered with something sharp, almost dismissive. The woodworker, right? It was that subtle condescension, as if my trade were cute, quaint, barely worth noticing. I nodded politely. "Yeah, that's me." "Nice party." He didn't stop there. Leaning in slightly, he said loudly enough to draw a few curious glances. "It must be tough keeping up with someone like Sarah. Her star is really rising here." I noticed a few of her colleagues shift uneasily, sensing the tension he was trying to create. Most people would have shrugged it off, but his smug little grin hit a nerve. Across the room, Sarah caught my eye. Her expression, a mixture of worry and silent pleading. I offered her a calm smile and took a sip of my drink, letting him continue. "So what do you actually do all day?" "Carve tables while Sarah closes deals." A few people laughed, thinking it was playful banter. I didn't move. I let the room's attention settle on me for a moment. Then, with an easy smile, I said, "I keep busy," but I didn't explain everything. Richard had no idea that my carpentry was more of a side venture. By day, I worked in cybersecurity, quietly consulting for some of the top firms in the region, including incidentally Sarah's company. I'd helped them recover from a significant server breach the previous year, my work remaining completely anonymous. "Actually, Richard," I said, letting my voice carry so the small circle around us could hear, "I dabble in tech as well. Ever hear about that server breach you had last spring?" His confident smirk faltered ever so slightly. "Nasty breach," I continued casually. "Weak firewalls, outdated encryption. I know the team that helped fix it. Took them weeks to sort it out." I watched as his face tightened. He had likely claimed credit for the recovery himself, though he barely understood the technical details. Sarah's eyes widened in alarm, mouthing the words, "Don't." But I had already spoken, and the momentum was unstoppable. Richard tried to regain control. "Well, good thing we've got it handled now. My team's on top of everything." He clapped me on the shoulder a little too forcefully, an attempt to assert dominance. I didn't flinch. "That's good to hear," I said evenly, locking eyes with him. "But if you ever need a real expert, I can pass along some names. I know people who've saved companies like yours from disaster." A hush fell around us. A few coworkers exchanged glances, noticing the subtle shift. Richard's smug grin disappeared, replaced by a calculating, uncertain stare. He didn't know my full story, but he knew I wasn't just a quiet woodworker anymore. Sarah, sensing the tension, stepped in with all her charm and redirected the conversation to a new marketing campaign her team was launching. The crowd slowly dispersed, and Richard excused himself, muttering something about checking on catering, but the damage had been done. Later, as we collected our coats, Sarah pulled me aside. "What was that?" she whispered, a mixture of irritation and disbelief on her face. I shrugged, pretending none. "Just making conversation," I said. But she didn't buy it. "You embarrassed him in front of everyone." "He's my boss, Tom. I felt a twinge of guilt. She was right. I'd let my ego get the better of me, but I couldn't resist. He had come at me like I was insignificant, and I wasn't about to let that slide. In the following weeks, Sarah noticed Richard's coldness. He criticized her reports more harshly than usual and left her out of a crucial meeting. She didn't blame me directly, but the frustration was clear. I apologized and promised to stay out of her office politics from that point forward. To make amends, I offered to take her team out for drinks, careful not to reveal my consulting work. She agreed on the condition that I kept things peaceful with Richard. I laughed and swore I would, though I couldn't resist a private smirk at the memory of Richard realizing he wasn't the biggest player in the room. About a month later, I received a call from the firm's IT director, a colleague I'd worked with on the server breach. He told me Richard had been asking around trying to uncover who I really was. Apparently, the man was paranoid that I might have compromised his reputation. I instructed him to stay quiet. I had no need for the spotlight, but it was satisfying to know Richard was sweating, wondering just how much I knew. Sarah's career thrived despite my little stunt, and she even earned a promotion a few months later. Richard, however, has been far more cautious at company events ever since. Looking back, perhaps I should have let his comments slide. But there's a certain satisfaction in seeing someone who thinks they're untouchable realize they're not. Sarah and I remain solid, and I've learned to keep my double life discreet at her work events. Still, I keep my ears open because if Richard ever tries to test me again, I'll be ready.